So what are the benefits to using an application manifest when deploying with PCF? Well, there are many. So let's take a quick look by comparing and contrasting deploying from the command line directly with using an application manifest. You can see the basics that we require here when we do a command line deploy: the application name, either our pre-created route, or in this case we're going to allow PCF to assign a random route, the amount of memory and disk space we want to add to our app, and deploying is as simple as let's go. So let's take a look and see if our command line deployment of the Ruby Solver application was successful, and it was. We can see that we started one instance of the application. We could have specified more or less instances from the command line, and we could also use CF scale if we want to change the amount of instances that we have after the fact. We see that since we allowed it to assign a random URL, we get the full URL of our workshop, plus our app name, plus the part that's actually random, and sometimes these combinations are kind of funny. So we look down here to the build pack, and we see that PCF was automatically able to determine that we were using Ruby and select the right build pack. Now, one caveat to that: if you investigate the build pack for a specific language, Ruby as an example, this was a legacy app that I pulled out of the junk drawer, and it was built on Ruby 2.3.1, I believe, and the versions available in the build pack were 2.2.9 and 2.3.5. So that necessitated a version upgrade before I was able to deploy. It pulled the start command directly from my code, including the environment that I was working in. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to wipe this app out so that we can take a look at what the build pack will do for us. So with the delete command, I'm both forcing the delete of everything having to do with the app, and I'm also deleting the route that was associated with it. So deploying from the command line was smooth, and it actually does have a couple intrinsic advantages. One is that if we're going to use a manifest file, then we have to be more specific than we do with the command line. Because at the command line, CF push roamed through the app, it saw we needed a database, and it automatically provisioned what our application needed. However, since we're going to deploy with a manifest, we're going to have to assign a service instance for the database. And so the first thing that you're going to do is check the marketplace for the service that you want with CF Marketplace. And you'll notice this is one of the few places in which you can tell that you are actually deployed on the Azure platform and not, for instance, on the PCF platform. On PCF, if I were looking for a free PostgreSQL application, I would look for Elephant SQL. So to find what I wanted in the marketplace, I was able to pipe to a search for PostgreSQL, and that returned to me the Azure version of that. Now, one thing to note is when you see these little asterisks, that means that there's a charge for what you're getting. So Azure isn't offering a free version of this, so we're going to take the basic 50. And with that, we will go ahead and create a service. It's as simple as saying which service in the marketplace you wish to create, which version of the service, and then what you're going to call it. So we wait just a moment while it creates the service instance, and then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to bind this particular service instance to our application. So it's reminding us that we are going to incur a cost with this service. But let's just see, using CF services, if we did correctly create it. And it says now that create's in progress. Now that we've created a database service for our application, let's take a look at the manifest for that application. So I've moved this manifest from the parent directory, because if it were in the directory previously when we tried to deploy from the command line, we would not have been able to do so. It would have picked up the manifest. So as we look at this, there's a format that's required for these manifest files. And so those dashes at the top aren't a mistake that you want to erase. They're part of the format. And then as we go down and we look at the different specifics for the app, like environment, we're going to add another specific, which is services. And then we're going to specify the service name. And so there's a little bit different format than there is for Rails, in that we have to place a dash and then a space, and then we're going to say Ruby Solver DB, which was the service instance we just created. So we'll save this file, and then the difference becomes immediately apparent between deploying with and without a manifest, because instead of having to specify parameters at the command line, you just simply do CF push, and it begins to read the manifest and deploy the application with the parameters that you have set. The application is successfully deployed using the manifest, and if you'd been watching the screen scroll by as the app was deploying, you would have been fascinated at all of the separate tasks that PCF is performing. Every Ruby gem installed, each of the virtual machines set up that depending upon the number of instances that you provision, and literally every support system that your application needs is automated for you. So that's the benefit of platform as a service. And as a best practice, you'll certainly want to take advantage of using application manifests. And not only can you create an application manifest for a single application, but you could specify multiple applications in a single manifest, and therefore it is good for process automation as well. So you can verify the application at the route that's listed on the screen, which will be different for your application. And then also in another video, we'll discover some of the extended logging features that are available on the Cloud Foundry platform.